Okay, everyone, welcome back from lunch. I hope you got a good feed into you for the afternoon sessions. So we're back on the technical track. We're going to start off with Matt Fulford, who's the CTO and Chief Architect for PFIKS.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Matt Fulford. I work for PFIKS. We're a Liferay partner here in the UK. And I'm here today to talk about some of our recent experiences upgrading Liferay clients to version 7 or DXP. Quick show of hands, who's already upgraded to DXP? Okay, 3 or 4 people. We'll have a chat later. It'll be interesting to see how you got on. Who's going from 6.2 to DXP within the next 12 months? Yeah, so more people. Anyone on 6.1 moving to DXP? One at the back there. Good luck with that. Okay, so I'm going to talk today about the upgrade we completed in the summer for Knowledge Hub. For those who don't know Knowledge Hub, it's a large social collaboration platform used primarily within the UK public sector. We at PFIKS, we've done a few DXP upgrades now, but this one was probably the most interesting and troublesome and lengthy, probably the one that produced the most blood, sweat and tears within our team. So Knowledge Hub have been a customer of ours since about 2010. And this was the third major Liferay upgrade they've been through. They started on 5.2, they went to 6.1, 6.2, and now obviously 7 DXP. So we actually started their DXP upgrade project back in March last year, so quite a long time ago. It's around the time of the first Community Edition general availability release, but well before the first DXP release. The reason we started so early and when the software was so new, it was simply because we wanted to put ourselves through as much pain as possible. Joking. We started so early because we planned a complete redesign of the front end. So we needed to have enough time to do that kind of UI, UX design, user testing, user research. And we also wanted to prepare our team to be able to develop on and support the new technology platform. So the first few months were mainly design work, user research, prototyping, and the actual implementation work started in about July 2016, which was around the time of the first supported DXP release last summer 16. So this was a really interesting upgrade for a number of reasons. One, we started when DXP was so new. Technology wasn't particularly mature. 2, Knowledge Hub was such a large data set, so just in terms of the depth there, but also it was such a broad data set. Knowledge Hub used almost every feature of Liferay, so we weren't just upgrading a system that was using web content management or document management. We were upgrading nearly everything within Liferay, so it was quite a challenge. Okay, so the environment was a fairly standard environment, CentOS Linux, MySQL, Tomcat, Solr. Nothing to worry about too much there. But as I said, it was a pretty large data set. So 40 gig database, which isn't that bad, but 500 gig file store, which was really fun transferring over VPN to our upgrade environment about 100 times. So they have 160,000 users, about 2,000 sites, 200,000 or so documents, 3 million asset entries, and about 8 million resource permission records in their database. So quite a lot of data to actually process during the upgrade. Okay, so what needs upgrading? The upgrade project breaks down into 2 main areas. Your application and your environment. So within the application, we obviously need to rebuild a theme for Liferay 7. We need to build portlets or hooks to work on against the new APIs, so using the new SDK, and optionally change build tools. So we've got Gradle, we've got Gulp, as opposed to tools that were previously being used, such as Ant and Maven. And then on the environment side of things, we had to move to Java 8. They were running Java 7. For Liferay 7, we have to run Java 8 now. We had to update Tomcat. We had to move to the latest version of MySQL. We had to update Solr. We had to obviously upgrade the Liferay database. And then we had to run a whole load of scripts to update any custom data. So we had lots of custom data in that database that needed to be updated. So one of the big decisions you need to make when you're planning your upgrade is whether you stick with your plugin architecture or you move to modules, OSGI modules, obviously being a new feature in Liferay 7, Liferay DXP. Our 6.2 implementation consisted of 17 plugins, pretty well encapsulated, not too many interdependencies. Obviously, within those plugins, there were lots of different hooks, lots of different portlets. So we had a couple of options here. We can either migrate those plugins as they are, take those plugins, rebuild them on the new SDK, and then just fix stuff, fix any API issues, regenerate service builder, fix or merge JSP overrides. Or we could convert. So we could take those Liferay 6.2 plugins and actually convert them to OSGI modules. So conversion to OSGI it usually involves some level of application re-architecture and does require a fair bit more brain power. You may be aware of the pros and cons of doing these things, but generally speaking, it's a good idea to convert when you've got, you might have a very small, simple application. It might be quite easy to then convert to OSGI modules in order to gain those benefits. Maybe you've got a really large application with loads of lines of code, with lots of developers working concurrently on that code base. Separating that code out into lots of modules will really increase productivity and give you the ability to release more frequently. Or if you've got plugins that have reusable parts that you'd like to consume from elsewhere, so maybe you've got some business logic that you're using in multiple projects or across multiple customers, bring those out into a module and then reuse those modules across those different projects. If you have an infinite time frame and an infinite budget, then you'd probably go for conversion every time. That's fairly obvious. So you really need to weigh up the pressures of your specific project against those benefits of conversion in order to make the decision for your specific project. And of course, you can mix the two approaches. So you could do some plugin migration, some plugin conversion. That's actually what we've done for some other upgrade projects where we've had less time than we did on the Knowledge Hub project, or maybe more budget pressure. Then any new features that you're going to implement later, you would generally build as OSGI modules and perhaps gradually migrate or convert to OSGI over a period of time. But for K-Hub, we did opt for a full application re-architecture and conversion to OSGI. It was effectively a rewrite of the application, taking those 17 plugins, re-architecting, redesigning, rewriting the whole application, which was fun. So portlets. So because we opted for OSGI conversion, we were able to split each plugin into multiple modules. So generally speaking, we have an API module coming out of a plugin, a service module, which is the implementation of that API, and then a number of different web modules, which are effectively your portlets. That's a very simplistic view. We have lots of other modules going on all over the place, but generally, if you've got a basic portlet plugin, that's the division you end up with. You obviously have to update any API calls, so any code that's relying on the 6.2 API, you may need to update that. There's a great document called the Breaking Changes document on GitHub, which tells you exactly what changes between 6.2 and 7. Rebuild any service builder services. That's supposed to just work. It doesn't always just work. It does sometimes. Update CSS to Bootstrap 3. If you've got JSPs using the old Bootstrap framework, you'll generally want to update those CSS classes to use the Bootstrap 3 versions. And just deploy into your Liferay instance. Once you've got it all compiling and building, get it deployed. There's a tool now in Liferay 7 called the Go Shell, which is a really great tool to help you understand why potentially a portlet isn't available, why a module hasn't been activated. The Go Shell's got some really good commands for diagnosing those issues. So that was portlets. Hooks. So hooks are a really good candidate for migration to OSGI. OSGI really starts to shine with hooks. So in 6, hooks are quite complex. You have to create a plugin, define an element in your Liferay hook XML, potentially add something to a portal properties file, and then write some code. With OSGI, all of this can be done. All of these extensions can be done with just a single annotated Java class. Really, really clean, really cool. So fairly straightforward to migrate your hooks. There's a great resource you might be aware of called the Blade samples. There's a GitHub repo called Blade. And there's an example of pretty much every type of hook in Liferay 6 and how to build that hook, how to build that customization or extension as an OSGI module. The Blade samples are a fantastic reference. Also, the Liferay portal codebase is a great reference for how to do these things. So if you're familiar with a particular behavior in Liferay, and you want to know how to do that as an OSGI module in Liferay 7, just find that piece of code in the Liferay codebase and copy that approach. I put there JSP overrides can be difficult. So they can be quite troublesome JSP overrides, as you'd expect, because you need to unpick your previous customization on the 6.2 JSP, then work out how to apply that appropriately to the Liferay 7 JSP. So that's a bit tricky. That's probably the most time-consuming type of hook to migrate. So this is a model listener, but that is the hook. That is the model listener hook that we migrated. That's a single module, single Java class, nice and simple. That's all we need to do. Just a bit of annotation at the top. So in our code base now, from that 17 plugins, we've now got just over 200 modules, which sounds like a lot. You might think 200 modules. How do you manage that? But a lot of these are just tiny little things, like a model listener or a single JSP override or an individual custom component, like we have an MI report feature. So any new report is just a new OSGI module. So that 200 is going to grow quite quickly in our implementation. It obviously gives us a huge benefit in terms of a much lower risk for deployments, with only a tiny fraction of the application ever being updated during a deploy. So themes are pretty straightforward to migrate. So again, update the Bootstrap CSS class names. Velocity templates in your themes or free market templates can be quite tricky. You generally have no visibility of your issues until you actually deploy it. You get a whole lot of stack trace in your console. Obviously, update your APIs that you're calling from your templates, and account for the new doc bars. So obviously in Liferay 7, you've got your product menu on the left-hand side, a control menu along the top, and your application and content menu on the right-hand side. You need to think about how those are going to be displayed on your interface. The last bullet there is implement a redesign question mark. So you're making significant changes here. You're using Bootstrap 3 now. You might want to think about adding a lick of paint if you wanted to add a bit more complexity to your project. And then other stuff. So core overrides. Anyone using EXT plugins still? Yeah. So unlucky. You should try and remove those if you can, obviously. But they do still work in 7, in DXP. We do have one very small EXT type plugin running on Knowledge Hub for a very, very specific security requirement. But there's no getting away from it. You do get requirements where you have to use EXT. Other velocity stuff. So you might have web content templates or application display templates, stuff that you might not necessarily think about when you're doing this. You've got to include those in your upgrade work. And then any SOAP or JSON Web Service clients. So if you've got external web service clients that are communicating with your Liferay application, think about how they might need to interact with your newer API. Okay, so onto the environment side of things. It's really tempting to upgrade your dev environment, then your test environment, then pre-prod, and then your production environment. I don't think you should do that. Don't do that. Create an exact replica of your production environment and test your upgrade there. So that includes your database, files, users, permissions, the cluster setup, everything. So create an exact replica of production. So the reason you should do that is because dev and test environments quite often contain rubbish. You'll get upgrade issues thrown up that just don't exist in production. There's no point fixing upgrade issues that you're not actually going to need to fix. It's just a waste of time. And also, you don't want to get to your production upgrade and then hit a new issue that you've not yet hit during your test upgrades because it's a completely new configuration or a completely new data set. Disable outbound emails or obfuscate user email addresses. So you've got a clone of your production data. Don't leave those 160,000 user email addresses real. Obviously, when you're running large batch processes against a copy of that data, you don't want to risk mass mailing your user base. It goes without saying. So the database upgrade. So this, for us at least, was the hardest part. You know, we've basically rewritten the application, but this bit was the hardest part. Mainly because it kept failing for us and was initially taking forever. So first of all, create an upgrade plan. A step-by-step list of tasks that you'll need to perform. Share that plan with your team, get feedback, make sure everyone's bought into it. Really important. And then take backups. Take backups at the beginning and at key stages during your upgrade. This way you won't need to go back to the very beginning when something fails. You can just go back to the last stage of your upgrade. We actually had 6 different stages of our database upgrade on Knowledge Hub. So one was the clone of the 6.2 instance. Then after running some preparation scripts on that 6.2 instance to get it ready, then our next stage was actually running the Liferay upgrade process. Then we had to run some setup scripts on the newly upgraded DXP instance. We then had to run some custom data migration scripts on that instance. And then right at the end, after performing a set of manual update tasks. And test those backups. You know, having an untested backup is like having no backup at all. Make sure you can actually use those backups. Worst thing you could possibly do is need to roll back at some point and your backups don't work. So previously, you would simply point the new Liferay installation at the old database, start up Liferay, and it would just upgrade itself on startup. So that's not the case anymore. We have a dedicated standalone upgrade tool. This tool is really good. So you can set breakpoints in the upgrade code. The logging is really granular, and you can tune the JVM settings specifically for the upgrade. Obviously, you'll need to run the upgrade tool in the background so it doesn't terminate when your SSH or RDP session times out. The first time you run the upgrade, it probably won't work unless you're very lucky. So find the problem, fix it, restore the backup at the appropriate point, then run the upgrade again. This happened so many times for us. We maybe ran the upgrade 30 or 40 times before it was right. One example of an issue we faced was in 6.2, we were using the old calendar events API. So we had a custom portlet which was creating events and reading events using the old cal events API. That's been completely removed in 7. So after running the upgrade, all of our events are missing. So the fix for this was to deploy the Liferay calendar plugin from the marketplace on the 6.2 instance before starting the upgrade. And that deployment on 6.2 converted all our legacy events to the new calendar booking API. So there's loads of things like that you'll come up against, especially if you've got kind of a broad platform that uses a lot of Liferay features. Every time you run the upgrade, refine that upgrade plan. So you've got an initial plan, just refine it. Record timings for any long-running steps, such as the upgrade tool and the reindexing part. This is our 62-step plan for Knowledge Hub. I don't expect you all to read it that quickly, but if anyone wants a copy of that for reference or just out of interest, come and grab me later and I'll happily show you that. Brings back some memories. So if you're migrating plugins rather than converting, then a lot of your existing tests should just continue to work without too much effort. If you're converting to OSGI like we did, or doing a kind of a UI redesign, then you're going to have to do some work here to get obviously unit tests, integration tests, and functional UI tests working properly on the new platform. Obviously, they're a key part of the upgrade. Once you've upgraded, you need to be able to verify that everything is still working. And you're really going to want to do some load testing and tuning on the new environment. There's so much change going on with this kind of upgrade. It's almost certain that some JVM and app server configuration tweaks will be needed to get optimal performance. So, write a realistic load test script, get it run against a replica upgrade of your new environment. So this is a very high-level timeline of our upgrade. So we started back in March 2016. For the first couple of months, development was really hard. Lots of things were broken. Fix packs were being released thick and fast by Liferay. So some things were getting fixed, other things were breaking. Not a fun time. Things began to stabilize in DXP in about autumn of last year. And we were able to release an MVP alpha build of the new Knowledge Hub for initial user testing in October. We then spent a couple more months adding in some new features, addressing user feedback from the alpha, and then we released a beta build in December to a slightly larger group of users. You'll then notice a big gap between December and July. This was primarily due to problems we had with that database upgrade. It effectively took us 6 months to get that working. The first time we ran the upgrade on a real data set, we had to kill it after it was running for about 2 weeks. It just wasn't getting anywhere. The performance of that upgrade was a huge issue for us. We also had lots of issues with site templates. So Knowledge Hub makes heavy use of site templates for creating consistent sites for users and groups. And that functionality at first just didn't work very well. But with the help of Liferay support, we got there in the end and finally went live in July. That was the finished platform. I'm going to go through kind of a summary of the sort of tips and lessons learned from our upgrade here. So first of all, check the support matrix. So the supported platform matrix, it's a document provided by Liferay that describes the supported operating systems, application servers, databases, JVMs, all that kind of stuff. It may seem really obvious to check that, but that's a really important first step. Make sure that you're upgrading to a platform that's going to run Liferay DXP properly. And if anyone expects their users to be able to access your system in IE9, be careful, be aware. It's on the support matrix, but it's a little bit dodgy. Clone production for your upgrades, for your test upgrades. So create a clone of your production data and the architecture there and configuration for testing your upgrade. Don't bother with dev or test environments unless you've got loads of free time. There's just no point. Obviously, you might have security considerations there, obviously, but if you possibly can, create a clone of production. Upgrade early. Perform your first database upgrade test as early as you can. We made a mistake here with Knowledge Hub. We waited, like you saw, until about November, December time when the application was almost ready before trying the upgrade for real, with real data. That was probably because everyone said, oh, Liferay 7 upgrade's really easy. That's probably Liferay saying that. It just upgrades, the tool just works. With a real data set, obviously you hit real problems. We probably could have launched maybe a couple of months earlier if we'd actually started that upgrade process much earlier. So that's something to do on the way home if you're thinking about upgrading to DXP. Take lots of backups. So take backups at the beginning of the process and at key stages during your upgrade. And then you don't need to go back to the very beginning of your potentially long-running upgrade process, just go back to the last step of your upgrade. Just make sure you've got enough disk space to hold all of your backups. The number of times we ran out of disk was crazy. And obviously test those backups, make sure you can restore to those backups. Turn off indexing. This might be pretty obvious to some people, but with large data sets, this can have a huge impact on the upgrade performance. When the upgrade is finished, turn indexing back on, and then log into the control panel and click the button to reindex everything. And you'll need to know how long that reindex process takes. Obviously, this needs to be part of your test upgrades as well. So you know if your reindexing is going to take 2 days, that needs to be factored into your plan. We have to do lots of sort of overnight reindexing on Knowledge Hub on the go live weekend. Use Liferay support if you can. Obviously, not everyone's a Liferay subscriber, but if you are, use their support. We actually raised 40 support tickets with Liferay between December 16 and going live in July. Their support team really know what they're doing, and they're there to help you, basically. They improved our database upgrade performance from 2 weeks down to 7 hours. That's a 50-fold performance improvement. I went to DevCon a few weeks ago in Amsterdam and met the guy who did that fix, and he was over the moon with himself. He was so pleased that he could have made that performance improvement. These people really care. They want this stuff to work for you. We had a major issue on the go live weekend. So we started the upgrade process on a Thursday night, and then we actually kicked off the Liferay upgrade tool on the Friday, and it finished on the Friday afternoon. And when we first started Liferay up, there was this horrible error in the log file. Basically, one of the sub-modules in Liferay hadn't upgraded. So the core had upgraded, but one of the actual modules hadn't upgraded properly. So there's this massive exception trace. Ticket to Liferay with a fairly high urgency, and they fixed it. They gave us a workaround at least to get moving within 2 hours. So really, really useful. Don't be afraid to pick up the phone and talk to Liferay. So regression test after each fix pack. So unfortunately, fix packs and hot fixes can break things. Now this was actually a major problem for us when the early fix packs were being churned out. Liferay was still making significant changes to their code base, so lots of things were changing. It doesn't seem to be too much of a problem these days. Things seem to be stabilized, but still, you should be performing thorough regression testing, ideally automated after applying any patches, particularly any kind of brittle areas of your implementation, such as JSP overrides, that kind of thing. And you should also retest your database upgrade if you need to install any new fix packs before you actually do your live upgrade. So if you've done test upgrades on fix pack 32, and you're all happy with that, you then need to install fix pack 33. Make sure you regression test that upgrade process before going live, because potentially those fix packs could introduce changes to the upgrade process. Move to OSGI. So OSGI is great. It does make your life as a developer or DevOps or release manager so much easier. Move to OSGI when you can. It's seriously nicer. Focus on the upgrade. Don't be tempted to add new features or make improvements to your application unless you're intentionally going through a complete UX redesign or application rewrite like we did. That did take up a lot of time. We've actually got to a very good place in the end, but the general recommendation to you would be to just focus on that upgrade, I think. And set realistic expectations. So when your client or your boss asks you, when are we going live, just add a bit of contingency or maybe lots of contingency. If it works perfectly well first time, then you're very, very lucky.